Hi class, this is your instructor Jack Downs. I was going to cover, because some people have asked the question about how to outline a paper or a report. And so I was going to try to cover that briefly, and if I have time at the end, I'd also like to show you how to do a table of contents. So we'll get started with the reason I've chosen deliberately a Strigit implementation, and hopefully you don't know what a Strigit is because I have no idea what a Strigit is. And the point is, when you're going to outline, this is a step I think you want to take before you have complicated your lives with a lot of research and facts and information pertaining to whatever assignment you have, because the outline really is going to create a placeholder for all the information you're supposed to go out and get. So if you do that first, then it kind of makes life, I think, a little bit more manageable for you. This is a technique that I learned doing a whole lot of federal technical proposal responses where I didn't always know what the heck they were asking for, but I got pretty good at least creating a document that had a placeholder for all the requirements that were needed. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you going over this technique. And this is just a technique I use. You may find it helpful yourselves. And what I do is I start with, and this document, by the way, could be several pages, multi-pages, tens of pages long. I would do roughly the same thing. I take the original outline, and sometimes it's not even as neat as this. Sometimes you've come out of a meeting where you have handwritten notes, your boss has asked you to go off and do something, and so you may have a rough idea of what you're supposed to do that looks something like this, although maybe not even as neat. So what I do is I take those notes and I copy them at some place, some blank place in my file, my document, and then I've just copied over what the original requirements are, and I'm going to take and italicize this. So I'll know that I'm going to create a document that basically outlines these requirements, puts a placeholder in for each of these requirements, and this reminds me that wherever I see italics, that's part of the original requirement. Anything else that's added, if it's not italics, would be mine then. And so whenever I have a report, I can, even if I don't know the first thing about what's required, I generally will have a need for some kind of an introduction, sometimes called an executive summary. So I'm going to put in a placeholder for an introduction. And I'll explain later why I'm putting my headings in using these headings number 1, number 2, probably not number 3. But so I'm going to have a section called Introduction. And in that introduction, I'm going to say I want to cover this information here. Overviews the impact of introducing the new state-of-the-art Nimbus InduArt to replace our current. Okay, so I'll have an introduction that explains all that. And then this report should address items such as the cost and the time involved with the previous office equipment. So I'm going to create it. This is really as much art as science, in my opinion, in my experience. But I'm going to create a section 1. And you can always come back and change this, of course, if you like. Section 1, I'm going to say addresses cost. And I could say section 1 addresses cost and time, but for now I'm just going to say section 1 addresses cost, and I'm going to say there's going to be a section 2 that addresses time. And I'm going to say cost of, where am I? Oh, there you are. Cost of previous equipment. Keep in mind your capitalization requirements. Any word over 3 letters, the first word, and any critical word capitalized in your headings. So I'm going to have time of previous equipment. And again, this is just a very rough kind of placeholder for this information. I'm going to take and copy this up here. Say this is the information. Now, instead of the report should address, as I go along, I could say this section. I could start writing, even though I have no idea what I'm going to eventually say. I could start writing my response by saying this section addresses cost, and I'm going to take out time because I've created a separate section for that with the previous office equipment. And then I've got to obviously come back later and put some language in there. I'm going to make this a heading 1 as well. Again, I'll explain. Whoops, where'd the 1.0 go? I want to keep that. Introductions, by the way, this section right here, never have a number associated with them, so kind of keep that in mind. Okay, section number 2, and I'll probably lose the 2.0 again. No, it stayed this time. So I'm going to say down here, put the same kind of language. This report, or I'll say this section of the report, this section addresses items. Take out items. We'll say this section addresses the time involved with the previous equipment. I can come back in later and tidy things up. I'm really, right now, just putting in what absolutely needs to be covered if I'm to do the entire report. So we've taken care of this. Looks like I'm also going to need, I'll put it in as a section 3.0, a transition plan. And I'll make that a heading 1 as well. I could say this section a transition plan for implementing changes. So you kind of get the idea. I'm not going to outline the whole thing, but I'm just stepping through. I would have a section 4, for example, called training of personnel. So wherever I see something that is going to need some discussion, I put it in as a section, and I leave the original language in as a kind of a kickoff. Obviously, by the time this thing is done, all the italics will disappear. I will have put it in my own words, but you get the idea. So, looking further ahead, try to include some experiences other organizations have had. I would have a section 5.0 maybe that addresses other organization experience. I could have a 5.1 for organization 1, 5.2 for organization 2, 5.3, etc. Down here, I'm going to have maybe a section 6 for a schedule, section 7 maybe for a proposed training location, section 8 maybe for an estimate of when the new equipment will be up and running and everyone trained. So you kind of get the idea. So this is the stuff that I have not yet incorporated into an outline. The other thing I wanted to show you that I think is kind of cool is I can also, obviously, when I go to do my final report, this will disappear because I've already copied it. Once I'm confident that I haven't missed anything, I will have copied that into the document, or I will have incorporated all that information into the document. The other thing I wanted to show you is you can do an insert table. Whoops. Yeah, I want to insert, whoops. Where did it go? Insert tables. My table of contents. Home. It's not under references. Well, this is embarrassing live on this very stage. File. Hold on just a second. All right, sorry for that live and unrehearsed pause. I'm looking for how to put in a table of contents, and it's actually under references. I should remember that by now. References, I come over here to table of contents, and I want to choose, you can choose any one of these outlines. If you've never done this before, this is an automated table of contents. And what it does is when I click anywhere in the document that I want to park it, it actually titles it as contents. You don't need to type in table of contents. And what it does then is everything that I've labeled as a heading 1.0 or heading 1, it'll include in the table of contents. And it would do the same thing for heading 2 and heading 3. And as you can see, most of these are going to show up on the same page right now. They're all on page 3. But as the document grows, of course, then these things will expand. And the cool thing about the automated table of contents feature in MS Word is that it'll automatically keep track as section 3.0 transition plan, for example, moves to page 15, 16, 17 as the stuff before it grows. It'll keep track of what page it's on, so you don't have to go at the end. I think the tendency for most people is they do this gigantic report, and one of the last things they do is create a table of contents. This really allows you to use the table of contents as an outline feature, so that at the very beginning you set it up and make sure that you have a placeholder for all the requirements that you have in the document. So that's kind of cool. I wanted to show you that, and see if there's anything else I wanted to say. One of the other things is consider, if you've got a sort of complex document, or your boss has given you this list of things to do, and you think you got it right, but you're not 100% sure. Take this document as it exists. You might have to tidy up a little bit of the language, but then, attach it as an email attachment, send it off to your boss or send it off to your professor and just say, hey, I'm outlining my document. I just want to make sure I have a placeholder for everything that we're required to do. And it'll save you a lot of grief down the road if he may send it back and say, or she may send it back and say, where you've got this discussion of cost going on here and time going on here, combine them into one discussion, because I don't want you to spend a lot of time on that. So they may say, this section 1 and 2, just combine it into section 1 and renumber the other stuff you have. So anyway, this is my approach to outlining a document that I think really is a sort of a foolproof way to make sure you don't miss any of the requirements of the document. And it also, a quick discussion of how to use the automated table of contents feature in MS Word. So if you have any follow-up questions on that, or it triggers something else you'd like to see addressed in a screencast, please let me know, and I hope you're having a great day. See you soon.